Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens, the screenwriting step-by-step project, chapter 110, episode 110 of this project, in which I am teaching you screenwriting by showing you the process that I use to write a script. It is not the best process, it is not the only process, it is the process that I taught myself, figured out how to do while I was building a 25-year career in Hollywood as a TV and movie writer. And so as I watched everyone else teaching screenwriting, I thought everyone is talking about the results. They're talking about the form. No one is talking about the process, the day-to-day discovery of how you build a scene on every page and every line of dialogue, how you go from a rough idea to an outline, to a rough draft, the famous vomit draft, to the rewrite, which is where we are now. I come to you every Monday through Friday, if I can make it, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. For those of you who are trying to catch me live so that you can ask a question, say hello, play along. Hello, Janae. But I know most of you will be watching this recorded wise, and if you want to ask me a question, you still can. You can do it by putting a question into the comments of this or any video on my channel. Or if you don't want to do that, you can go to writingforscreens.com. This is my website. And you can contact me by clicking Contact Me. That's how you can do it. You can ask a question even if you cannot make it live, because most of you can't. I understand. Hello, this is Kitschy. Hello, Janae. I'm glad you caught me live too. Hello, good afternoon, Larry. I have not seen the new Screen. Did you enjoy it? Hello, Natasha. Good to see you. Okay, let us get right into it, because I would like to get, hello, Orfei. I would like to get through this first pass at notes. What we're doing here is finish the rough draft. The rough draft is 90 pages long. For a 60-page script, I've got to cut 1/3 of the script. And more important than cutting, I have to make it make sense. I was just sort of roughing things in, guessing, following impulses, just doing whatever I could to get something down there to work from. The famous quote from William Goldman, at least we'll have something to change. I have 90 pages now. There's plenty to work from, and that's the point. Use what you have. If you can just get something down, you've got some hope to get it done. I did a whole video on this called Use What You Have, and I urge you to watch it. Okay. You're at the mall waiting for your mom. Well, hi, and hi to your mom. That is what a world we live in, right? People are watching me live at the mall after the movies. Yes, definitely let us know what you thought. Hello, Philippe, or Felipe. I think it's Philippe. That's going to be my guess. A lot of shocking events. Yeah, I would think so. Okay, so back to the pilot we're working on, the Untitled Podcast Killer Project. Here's what we've got. We've got a 90-page rough draft here. We got to 50 pages in our notes so far. And what I was doing is, during the day, before I come on live, so that you don't have to watch me read, I have been reading through the script and just jotting down some basic notes. I will go through this process several times. You don't do it all at once. This is one of the most important things that you can know about writing, which is no one gets it all at once. You do everything in steps, small steps, little bites, bits and pieces. And the most important thing is to have a process that you can return to reliably to do each little bit and piece. And then you get the whole thing done. Greetings, Roddy. Okay, so as I read through each scene, I make some basic notes. The most important thing is this scene basically right? Am I on the right track? Is what this scene is about right? Because then I can say, try and make it better, as opposed to, this scene isn't working. I have to figure out what it really is about. So let us look at the notes for this scene, which are here. Okay, so far so good. When I read through this, I felt like it's basically right. It's overwritten. There's too many lines, too many bits, too much description. But the basic idea of this scene is okay. Now, the next scene, I remember well, it does not, as I said, this doesn't work at all. The only real point of this scene is checking in. That's really it. We just have to show that she is heading east. She lives on the West Coast. She has been told that things are going horribly wrong for her plan, and she has decided to jump on a plane. So that's all this scene is about. And the problem is that I wrote a bunch of really cheap, dumb jokes. That's really all this scene is at the moment, and that is no good. So we need a better sense of her. And what I realized here is the most important thing, I've got this bit with her parents, but the truth is the most important relationship she has in this story is not with her parents. It's with her detecting group. So I think maybe she should be talking to someone in the group. That's the first thing. I think the whole basic idea of this scene is wrong. I was just trying to think of something cool, and I was thinking, well, let's get to know her character. And I thought, how do you get to know her character? You see them at home. And she lives with her parents. But that's not really what's most important to her. So I'm going to rethink this in terms of a member of the group. And the other thing is, earlier on in my notes, I said, the group isn't big enough. I need a couple more people in this group. So why not define one of them in this conversation? So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop making these questions because they are defined. She is. Okay, so you see, that's what we're doing. We're making this in. Okay, so all right, so that's this scene is going to have to be entirely rewritten, what they call a page one when you're doing a whole script. Yes, it's trash truck day. So I'm just going to make a note, completely rethink. She is talking to a member of the group. Her key relationship is not with the parents. All right, so that is that. That scene is going in the trash. So now we get to, let's see. Okay, George's house. Norman and Madeline wake up and make love. This scene is okay. It's overwritten. I need to cut it down. But this scene is all right. And I believe that's what my notes say. Yes, nice, polish, and tighten. That's it. That's all I need to work on is making what's basically here better. A lot of your notes should be, yeah, just make this better. You're on the right track here. The next sequence, though, is not right. It's too rough. Hello, Javier. And yes, margaritas. Oh, I envy you. I got to start drinking while I do this. Don't you think? That would be interesting. Well, I raise a glass to you, Javier. Enjoy the margarita. I will catch up to you later on those. Okay, the next scene is actually a sequence of scenes. It's actually, all right. Okay. The next scene is actually 6 scenes intercutting the different group members in their lives, and it's not working yet. It's a good start, but the first thing is it's all in the wrong order, because what I did was I wrote, I was intercutting. I wrote Dundosky, McLean, Shrimpton. And I gave each one of them 2 scenes. So because I was trying to understand their characters, their story, I wrote those 2 scenes next to each other. So I've got 2 Dundosky scenes here, and then 2 McLean scenes. In truth, they're going to have to weave together. And one of the most important things to do is we need to make them feel like a single intercut sequence. That's the most important thing. They're not fully separate scenes. What I said to myself was, it's a good basic idea to check in with all these characters, but they have to be put into some kind of context of their group activity. So the question is how to connect them. Now, I made a note to myself because there's a movie called In Cold Blood. It's a really good, for old Hollywood, adaptation of the nonfiction book by Truman Capote about a murder of an entire family in Kansas in the 1950s. And the movie intercuts the victims and the killers. Until the victims are dead. But even then, they keep coming back in flashbacks. One of the things they do is they try to make connections, like one person will leave a room at the victims, and they'll turn off the light as they're leaving the room. And then you cut to the killers entering a room and turning on the light. So this is boom, boom, light switch, which makes just a mental connection. It's a very cool way to connect things. So I would say, I was thinking maybe that's the way to do it, but truthfully, I think that's a little too vague. So I think that they're all going to be listening to podcasts. We've got podcasts as the central thing here. Something like that. Or all checking in to the Dr. Sleuth site. Anyway, the point is what I'm going to do is have to add a layer that I don't have here yet. Meanwhile, by the way, but I'm just checking on the chat. Janae and Kitchi are checking in on the latest Scream reboot. It's interesting. It's not called a reboot and it's not called a sequel, so they're calling it a requel. Half reboot, half sequel. I kind of admire that. I think that's cool. Anyway, all right, let's see. So these 6 scenes are: Dundosky gets news that there's a rival gang threatening his territory, and then he is violent in church. McLean fails to pick up a guy at the gym, and then he goes to work. Shrimpton gets criticized for her listening to her podcasts, and she's struggling to stay off them. So that's the 6 pieces of the sequence. These are interesting ideas for scenes, but right now they're not working. And one of the main things is they've got to be much shorter, and they've got to have something tying them together. So I'm going to have to come back to that and figure it out. in detail. That's going to be a real outline issue. That's going to be something you can only figure out in the outline. Okay, got a question here from Larry. What if you want two people on the screen at the same time, but they are in different locations and you don't want to cut between the two? How would you do that? Well, I mean, technically you can't. I mean, a screen can only show one place at one time unless you do a split screen, which is the other way. One way to write it is you could say, and the way you would write it is just write split screen, like split screen. Louis' diner and Jane's car. So you could do something like that, and you could do it like italics or underlined or bold or all of those. I don't know. But something like that where you just, the concept of the split screen is the only way you can have two people in different locations at the same time without cutting. That's just the mechanics of film. Film can only be seeing one thing at one time. It's a lens. It's a frame. So therefore, you can do a split screen. That's what they're usually going to cut. That's really good. I mean, write it the way you want, and they'll figure out how they want to film it, because that's really a filming question. There have been some really cool split screen sequences where we intercut different people doing different things in different places and showing that they're happening at the same time by doing split screen. They do that in some crime films and caper films. Okay, so let's get through this because we're getting to the next scene. Okay, so now this next sequence is a bunch of short scenes where Norman wakes up and he realizes that his clothes are missing, and he goes to find her. And she says, oh, they're in the wash, and he gets them. And then she goes to make breakfast. And that's when the next scene starts. So my notes are, this scene is really 3 scenes. And the answer is just polish. The basic idea is good. Just tighten it up, polish it up, that. But then this scene, oh, look at that. This scene is good, but on the right track. Cool. So Madeline and Norman talking. This is, let's see what happens here. Oh, yeah. This is where he starts to really tell a lot about himself. But at the last second, she freaks out because she remembers that he's about to eat food in the house where the poison was put in the food. So she throws a fit. Okay. And then we go to the diner where they have, now this scene is basically a continuation of the getting to know you. But this scene is a mess. That's what I wrote. This scene and the next are a mess. They're just placeholders where I was throwing down a lot of different ideas. There'll be a section of dialogue here which is about her knowing Madeline, Madeline knowing George. But the truth is, we already talked about that earlier. And there's a little section here about leaving him that's interesting. But a lot of this is just picking up stuff that I was like, oh, I ought to get that information here. And I'm going to stop here to really make this clear. One of the key things that you need to do, especially when you're doing the rewrite, is be sure that no scene is just about information. If all you're doing is having someone talk so that the audience will know something that you want them to know, that scene is going to kill the momentum of your story. It's just going to stop dead no matter how good the information is. You need to have a dramatic action, a story, a reason that these people are talking about this for their own immediate needs at that moment. And that's what this scene doesn't have. One of the main things you want to do when you are doing your rewrite, because during the rough draft, sometimes you'll just throw information in. I often did that here. But now I have to say to myself, how can I get some of this, which information is really important and which is actually repetitive or unnecessary, and then what's the key revelation here? What's the moment that Madeline is reaching that she has not been at before? And that's the key to these scenes. So figure out exactly when she's going to tell her backstory. When is she going to actually cover this material once and for all? Because right now she talks about it in like 4 scenes. And then there's a little section here where Norman decides that he's going to offer to solve the crime, to join up with the detectives. And that's a bizarre, I don't remember why I did that. This here. And maybe we can find out who did it. And this group, maybe I can do it. I don't know what I was thinking there. Maybe I should go back and watch the episode where I wrote that, because I can't imagine why I would have Norman do something so out of character. But that's got to go. All right. If you have a scene with news broadcast and opinions about something, it would be okay. Yes, so that's well, yes and no. It's only okay if the hearing of the broadcast is mattering to someone. You know, if you're just showing like a TV show, a TV screen showing the news, the question is, who's in that room? Why are they watching it? Or is it a case where the news is important, but they are not paying attention? And so we want to say, hey, watch that. That's cool, because that's a dramatic a threat. That's like seeing the train coming when somebody's on the track. So the answer is it okay to, because I think what Javier is asking is it okay to put information, pure information, into a news broadcast? And the answer is still no, unless whoever is hearing that news broadcast is having some kind of scene or relationship or event that news broadcast is part of. You can't just drop the news in there. I suppose if you were doing a scene where, like, if you're, I suppose there's like a dinosaur is attacking the city, and you want to cut to the news, just have go to the news studio and show them reacting to it. Yeah, it's kind of lame. I think there's better ways to get that information across. That's really the main thing, is you don't want to spend your time in any moment just giving information. Okay, so they go outside, and here, this is again a case where I wasn't thinking when I wrote this. He starts to talk all about why he's writing the book and stuff. Now, we just 3 scenes ago had him doing a lecture about it. That's no good. Or actually, I think it was 5 scenes ago. It was their first night together. Anyway, oh, this is cool. Janae apparently is on a thing called Vocal, and here she says it's a great platform that pays writers to write articles, stories, and poems. How cool! And apparently, she's written a bunch of things on it, so that's cool. Neat. Congratulations, Janae. Show don't tell is actually tricky advice. I agree, it is good advice, but it's actually tricky because in theory, if you are, there's things where you could show the news and that would be like, oh, you're showing the news. So show don't tell is tricky. What you really want to say is make a dramatic action. Don't show or tell. That's what I would say. That's my own little patented. Don't show or tell. Make it a dramatic action. Make it part of the scene and have it be dramatic, where someone is doing something. Someone is feeling something about it. Because the thing about show don't tell is people tend to think that means simply be visual. like have the headline, cut to the headline of the newspaper being pushed into the camera. That's showing, not telling, but it doesn't matter. It's still telling. Okay, so the main thing here is that this scene is a disaster area. This scene, I just wanted, and I remember when I did this one, I just had a list of things in the outline that I hadn't made dramatic in the outline, and that's a key. This is another bit of really important advice. If you don't figure out in the outline what the scene is, what the central action of the scene is, who's trying to do what, and what the one thing that scene is about, if you don't decide that in the outline, you're going to have to decide it in the rewrite, because you're going to write a kind of messy scene. And you know what? That's not the worst thing. Sometimes the best thing is just get a bunch of stuff down, and then you can think it out and do this rewrite. It's part of the process. It's okay. But I am conscious of the places where I was like, in this scene, they have a whole lot of things to talk about. I'm just going to throw them all down and figure it out later. Now is later. We are at later. So I got to figure out what this scene is about. As I said, the point about how neither one wants to hunt serial killers is good. How we're getting there is awful. I have no idea. I'm good. That's going to be a session later where I'm going to have to sit down and go through the outline and the scenes that are right, keep them clean. The rest of it, I'm going to have to really go through the outline and think, what is this scene really doing? Which one thing is it doing? And whatever pieces I've got here that aren't doing that, where can I move them to, or how can I cut them? Okay. So the next scene is Xena in the secret basement. And the idea of this scene is not bad, which is she's doing her podcast, her influencer stuff, and as she's doing it, she discovers that George, in fact, has none of the promised evidence, and she freaks out. And you know what? That's a good scene. But a couple of real problems. The first problem is I have it set in this hidden basement room. Why do I have a basement room? I mean, I know why I did it. I did it because we needed to have the evidence in the house and have the police not find it. But the main thing is, I thought, he's got a whole garage. He's got a whole other work studio. Why would he have everything not there? Why wouldn't he put his files there? They aren't secret. Nobody's coming after them. It just doesn't make any sense. It's a screenwriter's convenience. I wrote that thinking I need there to be a hidden thing that everyone is trying to get to, but it can't be a hidden room. Maybe, and I said, maybe it's a box the truth is, everything that he's doing is digital. I'm not sure that there's physical stuff at all. It might be a flash drive, in which case it could be hidden anywhere in the house. All we need is for it to be hidden in the house and for people to need to know where it is and to need to get it. So I'm going to have to rethink this hidden room to something more practical. And that gets to the idea of what is George's, why did George record this thing at this time that she's listening to? And that's very, very tricky. I don't know yet what the backstory is for George on why he recorded this. And Javier has a point. The best hidden secret is the one you put right in front of people's noses. That is true. Right now, I've got two things to figure out. One is where it's hidden. That's not as important. The really important thing is the question of George's story. why did he hide this, and why did he record this revelation? I don't know that. I have to make it very, very simple because this is backstory. This is another important thing I'm going to just say. Backstory cannot become the majority of a scene. You want to have backstory be clean enough that it's not, unless you're actually going to go back into it, unless you're going to do flashbacks, which I don't want to do because George is not that important. If you're going to do backstory, it should be on a central character. Although sometimes in an episode you'll like do a minor character's whole story down the line. But for if you're doing a pilot and you're spending a lot of backstory time on a minor character, you've made a structural mistake, and that's what I've done. I have to figure out a way to make George's story so simple that I can get it into 1 or 2 beats. And this beat is one of the key beats. The idea that at some point, Xena has to stumble on the part where he says, I don't have any evidence. I'm just trying to get the guy's attention. That's the key. And really, what I'm doing here is I'm just looking through what I've written so far and trying to figure out what's the problem when there's a problem. For a lot of it, I'm just like, oh, the problem is I need to do a rewrite. It's polishing, it's tightening, it's heightening the good stuff. Now and then you'll hit a thing where it's like the track just goes haywire. This scene doesn't work. And right now, all I've been doing is reading through and sort of sorting it into scenes that just need to be made better and scenes that went off the rails. That's really all I'm doing. Then I'm going to go through the outline and put that in so that I have like a checklist of this scene is okay, this scene is off the tracks, and now I can start to fix them. That's in the outline. Okay. So the next scene is Madeline and Norman hear Xena flipping out, and they confront her, and then they have a debate about going to the police with the news she's found. That's all good stuff. We've got after our scene went off the rails here, we got a couple of good scenes. So I'm going to just skim past them because we're going to have to go back later and actually rewrite them. But the basic idea of this scene is good, which is Xena says, this is important. We have to take up George's mission and finish it for him because that's why she murdered him, so that she could take it over. But what she doesn't expect is that Madeline is going to say, well, no, you can't have his stuff. Get out of my house. That's a huge dramatic moment. That's a huge change in the story. Madeline is taking a stand against Xena. And also in the middle of it, Xena sort of plays best friend to them, which is her methodology for disarming people. So this is all good. This is Xena, Madeline, and Norman having a real conflict. And then we get to, shortly thereafter, Madeline says, get out of my house. So Xena's right outside, and she's so upset, she contacts the Zoom group for an emergency meeting. That scene has a problem, which is the transition into it doesn't make sense. I haven't made clear. When you're going from one time and place to another time and place, you want to make it clear enough that when the cut happens, when the change happens, the audience is not saying, wait a second, where are we? Who's going on? What's happening? And I did not, I described it here, but I haven't made clear where she is. It's just poorly written. So the other thing about this scene is that it's just way too quick. It misses the main event, which is they sign on to Xena's plan, and we have to understand Xena's plan, and then they get interrupted. Right now, they talk about, it's all about, will you come with me? And they have their various reasons for saying yes. But then what they're going to do doesn't happen. It's just too short. All right. So then we get to the final confrontation. The phone rings. Deakins calls. We meet Deakins. And this is mostly on the right track. It's just too complicated. That's the main thing. Is I've got some spots where, once again, I tried to bring in some kind of little twist or clever thing that was in my outline. And one of the great things about your rough draft is it shows you where some clever idea that you've spent way too much time on in the outline just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. But the scene is the basic scene is working. We're gonna go with this. It's okay, and it's a long scene. It's a big sequence, and likewise the last scene after he hangs up, and they all say, "So this is a lot of talk. This is good. Good scene. Good idea for a scene at least." But after he hangs up, we intercut their lives. That's doing okay. And then we got them. This is muddy. It's not. I've got too many ideas going on here, so I'm going to have to go through the outline and sharpen it up. But some of these lines are good. Some of these lines, some of these reveals are what I intended. And that's the key thing, is I've at least got some pieces of it. So that's it. Then we get to the end. And I have to say, I like the end. I like the last bit. I like that Xena says, like, I know you didn't want to be here, but we're in it now. And then she hugs him, and Madeline looks at Norman. That's actually, I didn't outline that, but when I wrote it, I thought that's going to work. So that's cool. I will. So now let me throw this open to questions, because we hit a good stopping point. What I'm going to do next is next week I'm going to take these notes. Hold on. See, I got all these notes here. And I'm going to put them in. I'm going to clean up the outline. Outline version 2 is the next step, is to take these notes, which I just jotted down, and really start to think out. All those things were in the notes. I said, what is this scene about? I can't leave that a question. I have to answer that. And I'm going to do that in the outline. I always look at the outline as a workspace and a things to do list. So that's the other thing. While I was writing the rough draft, I made a couple of notes to myself, things to do. I just made a little separate document. So actually, let's look at that. What is that? Find a title. Watch out for characters dumping info. That's exactly right. This is, there's, spend some time. Talk about, there's a note to myself to talk about on the live stream. How much of this did not go according to plan? Like I had a thing that I thought the scene was going to be about. And then as I was writing it, I realized I had made a mistake. You don't know what you're doing until you do it. You have to make your best guess. You have to do as Walter Mosley said. Let me see if I can find that quote. It's really good. Here it is. It's done when you know that everything you need to fix, you can't fix yet. That's how you know that your outline is done. That's how you know that your rough draft is done. Is it right? No. Do you know that there's things you're going to have to fix? Yes. But you know that you can't fix them until you move ahead in the process. The most important thing a writer can learn is to get familiar with the process. Writing your notes, writing your outline, writing your rough draft, writing your new outline, writing your new draft. That's the most important thing. Everything gets solved if you learn the process of writing, thinking, rewriting. And it goes on, and you go back and forth between them, sometimes scene to scene. That's all okay. All right. I'm going to start to head towards finishing up. So I don't want to interrupt. Janae and Kitchi are trying to be in touch. May I make a suggestion for you guys? If you need to pass contact info to each other without broadcasting it, send it to me and I will try to get it to them. Use contact me at writingforscreens.com. Okay. That's just it. If you guys are trying to contact each other and it's not working out and you don't want to put your email, for instance, on the chat, which I understand, contact me. Kitchi and Janae, contact me. I will trade your stuff between you safely. There you go. Okay. And with that, does everyone got that? Are we good? Can we have a weekend? Let's have a weekend. Let's sit back and say, hey, we finished the rough draft. I've read through the rough draft. We've got ourselves a plan for what to do next. Next week, back into the outline. All right. I'll see you guys on Monday. And in the meantime, go write something.